As always.
Oh, yeah. It is September 21st, 2020. This is Atlanta United FC Weekly, a Home Before Dark podcast. No cans to pop because we've already popped them. Guys, it is fall. It's the last day of summer. Today's the last day of summer, right?
Didn't feel like that.
Yeah. It is the last day of summer. You're right.
Definitely does not feel like that. I am Tim Herb. As always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Mr. Dan James, in the middle.
Hello.
And as always, Kevin Bradley is not with us. So the new trend. So we got our good buddy Eric Quintana of Mouse of the South joining us over to the right side of your screen. What's up, Eric? How are you, man?
Not bad, man. Enjoying a nice, easy breezy Monday evening.
Bubbly.
What
kind of bubbly you got over there?
Mango.
It's
mango
bubbly.
bubbly.
Bubbly, yeah.
Bubbly.
It's pronounced bubbly.
Look, I don't know. Like, I don't know what kind of mood I'm supposed to be in. Between the Falcons and Atlanta United, it's just a whole world of mess. This is peak Atlanta sports. This weekend has been peak Atlanta sports, in my opinion. And I want to say that it'll never top what this weekend has been, but at the same time, we didn't think the Patriots would get topped, and somehow,
yeah.
If the Patriots hadn't happened in the Super Bowl, what happened last weekend with the Falcons would have been the worst thing ever.
Well, it's compounded
Quinn keeps topping himself.
Like, you don't think that that's going to happen again in your lifetime, let alone 5 years in the future.
I think I saw a stat that it was like teams that were up 20-0 with 0 turnovers, something like that, were 444-0 since like 1933.
Yep.
To which I thought somehow they'll find a way to beat that record.
See, I tweeted out that joke about it being Matt Ryan's fault when the comeback wasn't even like that close to happening. Defense. Yeah, but it's definitely Matt Ryan's fault. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys are watching us live on YouTube, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, the notification bell icon. As Domer says, smash the like button. Thank you guys for tuning in. We got Richard Gordon, Elliot Beaven, Domer, Brittany S., Percy Herrera joining live, which is very odd. He was bothered to show up, asking how all the true 17s are tonight. I do want to get to that because I don't know what's going on with that. But yeah, I don't know how to feel either. I mean, to be honest, like Dan, I think we've talked about it on the show. Like, I feel like this season we've said is a wash.
I think it is. But obviously the front office is not going to come out and say that. And to the True 17 thing, I didn't care that Franco Escobar said something. But then when the front office kind of took hold of it and tweeted it out, I was like, that's a bad look, because then you're just gatekeeping. And the whole point of Atlanta United, what they founded themselves on when Darren Eales is going out to the pubs before the club's even formed, saying, we want to unite the city. So putting something stupid like that out on your social media is obviously, the left hand's not talking to the right hand. But I thought it was very stupid.
I don't, ever since Ryan Cantonese has left, it seems like everything in that social media, the marketing aspect has, and I know he wasn't involved specifically with marketing, but the social media game for Atlanta United, everything's kind of gone downhill. Between him and the loss of Paul McDonough, it seems like this team has just forgotten what it used to be, if you will. And both those people seem to be a key player in the players that Atlanta United recruited, the way that Atlanta United presented themselves on social media, and since their departures, it's all changed. Which, I mean, that happens over time. Some people are going to leave. People are going to go off to pursue better opportunities or different opportunities, and you're going to have to replace those people with either better people, at the very least, someone who can manage the same sort of work and manage the same sort of output that you'd like. That's not happening right now. It goes to show how important front office people are to the overall goals of a club over the long term. And Paul McDonough was was poached. I'm not sure what Ryan's doing now, but I know it's a better opportunity.
He's working at a pretty big advertising marketing company.
Yeah. I know it was something advertising. I just didn't know specifically what.
Yeah. You wonder with Paul McDonough, because his kind of shtick was he would create teams. Like, so he did that with Orlando, he did that with us. Then it made sense for another expansion team to do that. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to a further expansion team, maybe Sacramento when they finally come into the league. But you wonder if Paul McDonough can do it on the long term, because sometimes it takes a different skill set to build something out of nothing and then to ride something for an extended amount of time.
So what are we seeding? Are we seeding that Paul McDonough was the reason for our success in the first 2.5, 3 years?
Yeah, but it would be an incredible coincidence to hit on everyone, basically everyone that they picked up. Talk about Gressel, Miles Robinson, Yamil Assad. You can talk about Joseph Martinez being thrown in there, Miguel Almiron, like all the guys that they hit on, the obvious ones and then the not so obvious ones, they were all hits. It's not like 2019, 2020, where you see that the bench has struggled to kind of basically keep up with, I guess, the starting 11. We haven't had the depth that we've had in the first 2 years. And now that I look back at it, I remember thinking then, I was like, man, we don't have a lot of depth. But those pieces were that much better than what we have now. How we'd be – I think I heard it joked at some point after one of the Miami matches, how lucky would Atlanta United be right now to have Breck Shea? Just to have some additional depth at if not a starting piece altogether.
No, you think about that too. It's like whenever you're not starting Bello, because there are a handful of games that he has not started even since the restart. I mean, a player like Breck Shea, like he was an easy scapegoat. I felt like we talked about that last year. Whenever he was playing, he got booed a lot because he doesn't. For the player that he used to be whenever he was younger, especially in the U20 World Cups, going into trying to think FC Dallas, and then going over and playing at Stoke, like he was supposed to be a creative, like fast, go forward, be aggressive winger. And now later in his career, I don't know if it's the injuries, or he's been converted to like a wing back, and he's been very like he's averse to risk on the field, but that doesn't lend itself to endearing yourself to the fan base. I mean, we saw that last year because he really doesn't do much on the ball, but I don't felt like he didn't put a foot wrong necessarily most of the games that he played last year. But whenever you have the crowd of 45,000 watching a Frank de Boer team, as we see, that has a lot of pressure on the front, like the front office gets that pressure, and then you have to find somebody on the field to point that frustration to, as Breck Shea. And I just thought it was. I've always been a fan of the guy, or apologist, whatever you want to say. But like I felt like it was poetic justice in a way. It really sucked to watch him score against us, obviously, because I didn't want us to lose that game. But it seemed like poetic justice in Mercedes-Benz to score that goal, that winner agained us, that goal he never got for us, right?
The only thing that would have made it better was if fans were in the stands for him to I don't know that he would have, made a big deal out of it, but I'm sure he heard the words that were spoken about him and how much, the fans didn't like him. It's one thing to score in an empty stadium against the team you used to play for, but to do it with fans in the stands, it's got to be just a little bit sweeter,
Yeah, for sure.
Breck, I know he's put up with criticism like his whole life, it seems. Like he's always been,
especially
more on the edge.
City, right?
Yeah. Well, you see the posts on social media, you look like the way he's dressed, like the way he dresses, people are going to be on top of him about that.
Or parachute pants, man. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just no matter if people ever, try their own flag that's against what is the status quo, you're going to get criticism, and he's probably just had it bounce off. He probably doesn't give a crap. But I mean, would I want Breck Shea in there? I don't think
I don't
think it makes us any better.
There's just a lot of questions surrounding the front office, because I wanted to bring this up with you guys because I didn't know how exactly I don't know how to really, because you can view this club as successful from the fans' point of view, which 2017, 2018, I think most people would look at as successful from the fans' point of view. and the front office for the most part. You look at 2019, and while, yeah, on paper it looks like it was a great success, we all know the drama and the turmoil that was going on behind the scenes and how much the fans didn't like the style of play. Yet we were one game away from hosting MLS Cup again, and we won two trophies. Now, one of those trophies I'll set aside in Campeones Cup because it's a one-off. U.S. Open Cup, you can look, it's still a trophy. It is what it is, but you can still put an asterisk around it because a lot of these teams don't really care about it until, oh, look, we're far into this tournament. Let's take it seriously now. At least that's the appearance from the outside. While you can look at it as successful, you look at this year and you look at last year from a fan's perspective, and it's obviously not so successful. But from the club's perspective, you've found a way to turn Pity around and sell him off for a profit. You're probably going to do the same thing with Barco, and you're not going to get nearly what you wanted out of them over the course of for what you paid for them. You didn't buy Pity to then sell him for, I want to say maybe $3 million in profit, maybe after you part off what you have to part off. Barco, I'd imagine, goes for a little bit more money, but either way, those are moves that you had to make because given the circumstances, given the way that Pity's playing and how he's not being the factor that I think that everyone wanted him to be, and Barco sort of is in that same boat, although he's more of a factor. You take your chance and pull the trigger when the opportunity is right. But while the club might see that as a success, I still can't. I'm like, you still missed on Pity. I think I like that we have Barco. I wish we could get more out of him. And if you sell him more, then it's weird because you're not gonna get the same sort of respect in terms of the sale and the overall time in Atlanta that you got from Miggy or even if Joseph, if you had sold him or even Gressel. And those are guys that Gressel specifically, you didn't know what you had in him when you got him, and you knew what you were going to get in Pity. You knew what you were going to get in Barco, and you'd probably consider Gressel both a better success. Well, yeah, I don't think it's a stretch. Gressel's probably a better success over Barco or Pity every day of the week to basically every fan in terms of the production, the what he meant to the club, what he meant to the fans, all that stuff. So I don't know. It's a weird dichotomy because I don't know how to. Well, I get the reason I bring it up is because it seems as though the club could manage to do this over and over and over again and be considered a successful club, but never, I guess, put the pieces together in the sense of when it comes to the play on the field to continue winning trophies. I guess, I don't know.
I think winning on the field and winning trophies is the main thing.
For the fans,
but also for the club. I mean, you got to remember it's a business. So at being a business, all you're really worried about is at the end of the day turning a profit. Sure, all the other stuff is nice, but in the grand scheme of things, it's sort of almost like a really, really, really good plus. It's the greatest of pluses. No, I disagree. I think because the business, yes, you obviously want to be financially solvent, and you want to turn profit. Absolutely. I don't think you can turn the profits that we're looking to turn profits for the profit margins that we can get without winning games. And plus, yes, we're a business, but also, we're a professional soccer team. So the main goal of it is winning games and winning trophies. I don't think you can't. Like when people are talking about Arsenal, well, they never won anything recently, and then someone's flashing around a positive balance sheet at the end of the season. That's not a success. That's not what the fans see. And it's not what, we're in MLS. We don't get relegated. It's very hard you have to really mess up big time to lose your club and to be financially unviable now. Because there's so much parity in the league, and they've built it that way purposefully. So no, winning is definitely the main thing, but they're not going to bankrupt themselves trying to do that.
Right, it's a weird balance too. Whenever you're trying to grow the league, because certain things beget the other. Right, I saw a stat today because if you guys have been watching or paying attention to Philadelphia, they have a youngster U.S. men's national team hopeful or one of our great attacking midfielders in our youth, and Brendan Aronson, who's been tearing shit up with Philly, who's about to go, I think, if I'm not mistaken, going to go play for RB Salzburg and then probably eventually go play with Tyler Adams at Leipzig in a couple of years. But I think they said that was the 10th transfer is what I saw. The 10th transfer from MLS to Europe this year.
Really? Wow.
Compared to 6 from Mexico, Argentina, and I don't think Brazil. I think like Mexico and Argentina and some other country combined. So like MLS is getting a lot better in exporting. And I think that's going to continue. Right. Because I completely understand what you're talking about, Eric. I get both sides of you guys' arguments where
I'm not saying the team isn't going after wins. I think it seems as though the priority is more, and fine, if the priority is more on the sale of these players, fine. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just questioning the picks themselves. Like, what did you see in Pity? I went back and watched some of his tape, and I just sat there. I'm like, what exactly did you? I'd love to know. Love to sit in that room where you guys were sitting there looking to offer him money, and I want to know what you saw in him. Barco is obviously a lot more promise, but I guess more than anything, I'm questioning the choices they're making in terms of how they replace the success on the field and pass, how they're replacing the performance on the field from 2017, 2018 with what they have now, and how I think that ultimately those are misses.
Well, but I think you could believe two things at once. I think you can see Ron Pena in the trap. So I think he's getting probably a little worked up from Eric, but and Percy, correct me, is Uruguay is the third country. So Uruguay, Argentina, and Mexico combined only have 6 exports to Europe. So I think you could believe. I think two things can be true, right? I think that the front office could have missed on Petey, but at the same time, it being not Petey's fault. Like I feel like he was a man without a country, in my opinion, and I've said that before on the show. Where I think he's a very talented player. We saw shades of it. I felt like we saw shades of it throughout the season, especially considering the caveat of the pandemic, the start and stop, the restart, the MLS is back. We're not playing. We are playing. I thought his work ethic was great. I thought that he was, he had some blunders like the trip in Orlando, but I mean, it's not the worst thing that we've seen from this team, I don't think. And he definitely looked like he was a player coming into his own. But again, he was a player without a like. This is a front office, and this goes back to that argument. I think it was Nico Gonzalez Perez was talking about whether or not you buy do we bring in a manager first or we bring in a DP first? And I don't understand the thought process of not having a manager in place and bringing in a player, especially like PD. Like it's one thing if you're not a salary capped league, a DP, like with the crazy structure that we have. Like it's one thing if you're looking to bring in a big name as like a PR stunt at a big team or in a big league, but here like it doesn't make sense to me to splash the cash to take one of 3 precious spots to sign a guy who might not fit into the next manager's plans, and then it might be hampering to both the club and the player, and again to no fault of his own. But I don't know. It's hard for me to. I don't look at. I look at it as a success for us to get a profit at that point. I don't know.
Well, I mean, so I feel like if you go back to the situation we're at, okay, so we know Almiron's going, so we have to have a replacement for an Almiron. So we can't, and just like, I'm sorry, not an Almiron replacement, didn't mean that. Just like another DP. We need to pay some guy, we need to bring in some highly skilled playmaker who can help us provide assist to Joseph, receive the ball from the back, and just, try and run the midfield in attack. And we know we want to go with attacking players because they make the most money. So in hindsight, when you're the front office and you're looking at all these South American players, because that's where you're looking at for your value, why would you not look to bring in the most celebrated player at one of the top clubs in the Superliga? I mean, and Eric, I love that you have totally.
You're not.
Hold on. I love that you've totally stuck to your guns throughout this whole time. I've heard you talk and like not been a fan of Petey this whole time. And to be honest with you, I don't think he was the success that we thought he was going to be when we brought him into Limitless. I honestly, I don't. I saw the highlights too. There were some cool things there. It wasn't that great, but I do feel like when they made that decision, there was a lot of evidence for it, but it just didn't pan out like we wanted it to.
I do want to say that thing I did that threw out on Twitter was the dumbest thing I've ever done on my podcast. ever.
Somehow we got dragged into it.
The dumbest thing I've ever done on that podcast. Yeah. The sense of like, I still don't think Petey was a great choice for Atlanta United. I still question what the thought process was, but the way I went about that was the dumbest thing I've ever done. No, but look, it's more so, you didn't want to put the blame on. No one wanted to put the blame on the front office last year when it came to Frank de Boer, when it came to Petey's struggles early on, when it came to the surrounding supporting cast. And it seems like now that it's incredibly obvious and staring right in the face, everyone's like, all right, well, front office, what did you do? What are you doing? And I think it's a fair criticism, but I think the criticism should have started last year with Frank de Boer. Everyone talked about Frank de Boer out, and we all remember the drama that ensued after all that. But no one pointed the finger at the front office for making the picks, for not bringing a better supporting cast. And maybe Petey could have been a better player had he had the because I think Petey is a great piece to the overall puzzle. I don't think he is going to be a star player for any team he's ever on. I think he's going to be a great player for a team that's already kind of loaded, which is exactly what he had at River. So It's not like it's not a mystery that he comes here, is told that you're going to be the guy. You're going to be the guy that we need to count on, that we depend on to be productive and create and this, that, and the other. And when he can't do it by himself, or when he doesn't have a proper supporting cast to do it successfully over the course of a year and a half or whatever it's been, you can't be surprised. It's the decisions of players post Paul McDonough that have been just very surprising and just very not alarming, but it's just I can't. Before, I looked at the players that this club brought in and thought, okay, let's see how he fits. Let's see how successful he can be. This guy, we don't know anything about him. He comes to Atlanta United, and all of a sudden he's a star, like Yamil Assad, like Julian Gressel, like Joseph Martinez, like everyone else you can possibly think of. But you don't even with Moreno, this new signing that we've got coming in, it looks like you can't know for sure what you're going to get out of these guys. You really couldn't know for sure before, but you had more confidence about the type of players you were bringing in, about the type of quality you were bringing in, about the type of production and the overall impact. Now you just don't know, because it seemed as though Paul McDonough was the guy that was really influential in making some of these decisions, and it seems like right now the club is kind of at a loss when it comes to the players they're bringing in. Yeah,
and I wanted to ask, there's a lot to address in the trap, but Richard Gordon said earlier on, he said how much of those hits were influenced by Tata. I know you're giving a lot of credit to Paul McDonough, but like how much, again, like Tata coming in before the team ever took the field and being able to shape some of that and influence some of that lineup and work with Paul McDonough. I mean, to me, Marcelino Moreno could be a great player. Honestly, the jury's going to be out because Stephen Glass is not our, thank God. I'm sorry, but he's not going to be our permanent manager. He's been frustrated. Like his team sheets have been frustrating to understand from my standpoint. But again, like could we be stuck with a man without a country with Marcelino Moreno coming in and not having a manager that fits his identity? And then, are we going to get to a point where the players that Carlos Bocanegra has played on a team with are too old for us to sign? Like Cubo Torres, that was one of his former teammates, right? Wasn't at Houston Dynamo, and I don't know. I question a lot of Bocanegra's decision making. I think But then again, I don't know how much of that decision making is him versus Darren Eales. Like how much of that's done by committee, but between the two of them.
I mean, you even look at like the Heineman deal, where you're giving a guy who's relatively unproven for the most part $1 million, close to $1 million a year, and now we're at the point now where Heineman clearly isn't worth that much. You can consider that to an extent a miss. Because he's absolutely terrible on the field. He's fine. He's serviceable, but he's not worth the money that he's getting. It could be, that could be put towards a different player, a player that would produce more on the field than Heineman is.
Yeah. So, I mean, real quick, just to Ronald Pena's point, he's saying if you delegate player recruitment to your coach, you'll get the players that fit the identity. Thank you, for fuck's sake.
Okay, so Paul McDonough is the capologist, deals with all the contracts and stuff. Bocanegra and his team, they're the ones who identify the type of players and the talent that they want. So Paul McDonough figured out all the TAM and the GAM and all the salary structure, but I don't think Paul McDonough's the one that out scouting players and say, oh, we should go after this guy. I mean, I feel like he's probably brought in towards the end of the decision-making process saying, well, we can probably get this guy for this guy for that. But I don't think he's on a technical basis saying like, well, this guy seems fast. He'll probably work with this guy. I think that's Bocanegra's job. And
fuck, at this point, give Joe Patrick a job. He plays enough a football manager to know who these guys are. Get him a Paul McDonough. Get rid of Bocanegra. Joe Patrick's in there doing the scouting for player recruitment. Get him a capologist and say, go and grab these guys.
Right. So, I mean, it's Lucy Rushton who's the data analyst, right? So she's the one who's like scouting, trying to go through the databases and figure out what players fit the profile that she's been asked to give. I think that the only thing is you cannot control the timelines of when players are going to be available. So you could have, like, we could be tracking a player right now who we think is the bomb. We think he's going to fit the problems. And then the manager comes in and says, the new manager comes in and says, oh yeah, that guy's great. I'm glad you thought of him. You should absolutely pick him up. Oh, he's already gone to Barcelona. So you don't know when the timelines are going to work up. Absolutely. I agree. In an ideal world, we would get the manager in first. Absolutely. But that's just not realistic all the time. And the other thing is the reason why we have a technical director is so we can still get the same player profile and try and keep some consistency in the player profiles we're trying to bring in. So, Bocanegra, yeah, he may have picked up Jake Mulroney. Well, he's fast. I've yet to see anything from him. He's picked up the Hyman. I don't understand why Hyman is getting paid that much. I can't wait to see the salary structure when that comes out finally, but it probably won't be till October when the transfer window ends. But he also got he also picked Julian Gressel. He also picked Miles Robinson at the draft. So he's had a ton of success.
And John Gallagher.
And John Gallagher. And, picked out the rest of the 17-18 team. But now with a huge turnover, and we all are so over it by now, everyone just hates talking about it. We've had a global pandemic. I mean, the choices are kind of limited with what we've had. So
I don't know that given the keys to the manager in terms of player select or player recruitment, I guess, is the greatest. I'm trying to think of a current example, because you don't want. I feel like that's a recipe for problems. But what I think the bigger question is, if Bocanegra's at the head of this now, maybe his it's not so much an issue, but maybe the thing is that he could not find the players, or didn't really know how to spot the players that Frank DeBoer was looking after, or was what wanted, and it was easier, or maybe he had a better eye for the type of talent that Tata wanted. Because Tata said over and over again, he had nothing to do with a lot of Miggy, obviously, but he had nothing to do with the selection of a lot of these players.
Right.
but everyone knew that what his style of play was, what he wanted to put on the field. Everyone knew exciting, dynamic soccer up and down. What was it, 1-4-3 or something like that? That's the thing they were going after. It very could well be that the shift in tactics, the shift in overall philosophy, that just didn't really vibe well with Bocanegra, and it could be part of the reason Frank de Boer is out as early as he is, because to me it didn't make too much sense that he was kind of shown the door as early as he was in the season. I thought for sure they'd give him to the rest of this season, but when you go over in a tournament.
Yeah, as soon as
you can't really.
Yeah, as soon as you've lost the mentality of your players, I mean, there's no way back from that. You can't. I remember Ian Holloway at Crystal Palace. He's like, I've lost the locker room, so I'm just going to quit. You just can't go back from that. There's no way. The resources you'd have to put in to try and change that, and the time, you just don't have a timeline to do it. And the easiest thing is it's one guy, just cut the guy. But I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do. I think the jobs at Bocanegra, Darren Eales, and the whole front office is extremely hard to do. And what we did was 17-18. I mean, Paul McDonough was interviewed and he said, we basically caught lightning in a bottle. We had the perfect storm that everything worked out. It was just like the Patriots beating the Falcons in the Super Bowl in the second half. Absolutely everything worked out. Every ball bounced the way just needed to, just for us. So I think you got to take that into account as well. And now it is difficult. I mean, it's a tough position. But you just kind of got to go with it.
I mean, I guess my issue is that you change the entire philosophy, and when I don't know, it's a multivariable issue, because you lost Miggy, who was at the center of everything you were doing, and so when you lost him, you had to completely change everything, change the philosophy of the team going forward. I don't think Frank de Boer was the first choice, because I don't think Pitti thought he was playing for Frank de Boer when he got signed.
Right. No, I agree with that.
So it's that I think is a big one. I think if Pitti knew what he was signing up for, in Frank de Boer at least, I don't know that he would have made the same decision. I mean, who knows? Maybe he was looking to get out of River anyway, but I don't. I'm fairly not fairly confident, but that I think was an issue. That Pitti did not think he was going to be playing for Frank de Boer, and I don't think Atlanta United thought that Frank de Boer was going to be the guy in 2019. Which, fine, have a better backup, I guess. But the 2 years playing a specific way and then shifting it right after that, that was probably the biggest mistake that I think that the front office made. And I don't know if they had a choice. I'm curious to know what other names were on that page or on that list to kind of move on from Tata. But
yeah, I mean, that's Ron Pena saying Tata gave a list of coaches to replace him. The front office didn't use that list. I mean, I want to circle back real quick, Dan. You say that Paul McDonough was saying that they caught lightning in a bottle in 17 and 18. It's funny because I haven't really thought much about Paul McDonough, except, looking now, that Miami team looks like they're going to be pretty damn good in the next year. Like in the next year. I'm
pretty sure he's had a big say in the players that they brought in. So
I mean, it doesn't seem like a coincidence. Like If you look at Paul McDonough, like building the initial structure of this Atlanta United team and how good they were. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's lightning in a bottle. I mean, you look at that team down in Miami. I looked at beginning of the year, I was thinking they were going to be good. And then they started they're tanking, trying to get together, again, the season's a wash, but the way that team plays is scary. They're young. They have some great DPs. I mean, they got Gonzalo Higuain coming in, who is, one of the best strikers that we've seen on the world stage and European soccer, especially in the past, 10 years. And if he can play half as well as he did, aside from whenever his stint at Chelsea, I don't think was very successful. But other than that, if he can replicate his form, even 75% of what he did in Serie A at Miami, they're going to be one of the best teams in the East.
Yeah, they're going to be great.
And Orlando wasn't that bad either. They were scoring goals. They're at least fun to watch, I think.
Yeah.
They weren't doing a lot of winning, but at the very least they were making the games competitive and fun to watch. The players on the field were
players on the field.
Yeah, they were players on the field. Sure, we'll go with that.
I wanted to ask you guys real quick. I had a conversation with a buddy at work. So we're talking about some of the ups and downs, mostly downs of this team recently. One of the scapegoats this season, I think, and you guys have touched on, is Emerson Hyndman, a guy who we spent a lot of money of our salary cap on, upwards of almost $1 million a year, right? In salary cap spent on Hyndman.
I don't think it's salary cap. I think that's how much. That's his contract. His salary cap.
$900,000. Okay, yeah.
I don't think his salary. I don't think his cap would hit that much. I think it'd be like
that's fair. I don't understand this thing. I need somebody to make a trade machine like they do with the NBA on ESPN.com, so I could sit and try and work out all of the. So I can just plug players in to see if they fit in, if we're in breach of the stuff. But a question, like Emerson Hyndman, for all the slack that he got, he was a player that was pretty sure-footed on the ball. I felt like last year, felt like he was in control whenever he had the ball. I felt like he, I just felt like he wasn't a spectacular player, but I didn't think that. I thought he was fine. But this year, he was the player who, I don't think it was ever confirmed, but I think everybody discerned that he got COVID. He looks winded out there. I was going to ask you guys if you felt like maybe he is still recovering, even from like a conditioning standpoint, because he kind of looked slack-assed the last time I saw him out on the field. And I feel like he's not as quick as he was. I feel like he gets gassed really quickly. And I know that's one of the things, even the healthier people that contract COVID, that could be like a long-term, or whatever you want to say, like a lasting effect of the disease, is the lung capacity being affected.
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like just Emerson Hyndman is the player who he is. I don't know that he was never the quickest. He was never the best. I think that he was brought in to sort of be the Nagby replacement and maybe kind of fill those shoes whenever Nagby did leave. In theory, obviously that's not how that's worked out, but I think I feel like there was some sense of, and I have nothing to back this up, but I feel like there was some sense of like, well, we'll bring in Emerson. He's young. He's had some European experience, which I'm so over the European experience at this point. We'll play it. We'll sit him beside Nagby and they'll play and he'll watch and he'll learn and maybe he'll get the gist of what Nagby does so well that really helps Atlanta United. And that just didn't pan out the way it, maybe the way that they hoped, because he's not worth the money that they're paying him.
No.
Good on Hyndman, good on his agent for getting that money, but he's not worth the money they're paying him. That money could be better spent somewhere else. And that again, that's another decision from the front office that you just look at and you're like, whoa, what were you thinking? Like, what did you see in Emerson Hyndman that would warrant this?
I mean, that's one of the problems with any, whatever you want to call it, repatriation, is always going to be that salary bump, right? I mean, I think that's a big reason. Like, even if you look back at like how bad Bobby Wood was at Hanover, or was it Hanover that he was playing for, or Hamburg? And everybody was talking about him coming back. They're like, he's making way too much money, and those players aren't going to take pay cuts to come back over here and not be DPs. But they're not good enough to hit that DP level. But yeah, and that's. I mean, I was hoping I saw some sparks from him that I thought, well, like if you look at Campeones Cup, or he had some really bright spots. And I think he's a player who has a lot of quality, but like I don't know that he knows his position on the field, and I don't know if we know his position on the field. And he's making, to your point, he's making way too much money to be out there.
Yeah, I mean that's just the thing we didn't know. I felt like he had better performances pre-pandemic. Nothing to like set the world on fire, but I felt like he was doing well. I thought he had potential for the future, but from what I've seen now, I mean, no. I feel like you can say that about a couple of players on this team, but there's been so much change and so much turnover. I mean, and we had key players go out, and to have them replaced as quickly as we did, I mean, it's just not. It's not fundamentally sound.
I just feel like right now I talked about this on the podcast, or I think I don't know if it was me that brought it up or Josh, but on our podcast, multiple times we brought up that it just looks like Stephen Glass is running this team like it's an Atlanta United 2 team, like where there's just rotation for rotation's sake. There's no consistency, specifically in the midfield. There's nothing you can build off of game in and game out.
Yeah,
it's
he hasn't solved the midfield problem.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the biggest issue. And look, we can talk about Joseph Martinez being out, and sure, maybe you're doing a little bit better with Joseph Martinez in, but if he's not getting any service, and you can't provide enough evidence for me to think that Joseph Martinez is going to have enough of an impact in this year with the services been provided to, say, Kubo Torres and Adam John. I think that obviously Kubo Torres is put in a couple good positions. I think 3 to be exact. And I think Joseph Martinez traditionally does better in those positions. Adam John, I think maybe 1 or 2 where Joseph would have done great. But those are one-offs. Those are, over the course of however many games Kubo's played, it's like one really good chance that he's missed per game. So let's count it as 1 goal. It's not like Atlanta United is keeping clean sheets these days or anything like that. I don't know that this team does that much better right now with Joseph Martinez in the lineup. So that to me has nothing to do with the success or failures of 2020. It would certainly help, that's for sure. But the midfield, the midfield hasn't been solved, and I put on Stephen Glass. Like you can't sit there and keep rotating and not try to find something that just fits. Why Kubo Torres isn't? Kubo Torres is the guy that should be starting up top. But Adam John is a great substitute, a great 75th, 80th minute when it's tied and you need something and you're just kind of heave-hoing from the flanks. I don't know why he's not starting game in and game out. Maybe it's a conditioning thing. I don't know. We obviously know Jurgen Damm is hurt. I wish he wasn't because I want to see more of him.
Yep.
I feel like Joseto is the guy that could help your midfield kind of attain some cohesive, front to back, defensive third to attacking third type of thing. But I haven't seen enough out of any of the guys in the midfield, enough consistency to have a solid opinion, because you really can just rate individual performances. And when you do that, you're not really considering the unit as a whole. And, that's sure. You can look at the individual performances and think, oh yeah, he had a great game. But when it comes to, what that means over the course of 10 games, you really can't say.
Yeah. Matt Wisniewski in the trap poses a pretty good question. He said, can we accurately rate players with the lack of system we have right now?
No, I don't think you can accurately rate players in a global pandemic. No.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But I think you can rate like Gallagher. He's been solid in the minutes he's put in. He's giving you an attacking presence that you maybe didn't have before on that left side. He seems to be a little more dynamic going forward. So look, you can rate him. You can consider him a piece to the puzzle.
Well, I would keep. So let's go through the attack and midfield players, and let's see how many we keep and how many we get rid of. All right, so Eric Rometti, you keeping him?
Keeping him.
Keeping. Jeff Lorenowitz, you keeping him? Now, let's say this is going into next year. All right.
So assuming he doesn't retire.
Right. So keeping Rometti next year, 2021?
Yeah.
Keeping Lorenowitz?
Unless there's a better option, but
unless he's on like unless he's on like $50,000 a year, I'll keep him. You're gonna keep Emerson Hyman?
Not if I don't have to.
No. So let's say no.
All right. The money's a big deal because you gotta find a way to get rid of the
right. He's like at $900,000 a year in his contract, whatever that salary cap is. It's too much for the player that he is. If he wasn't making that kind of money, if he was making, let's say, a third of that, you would take him in a heartbeat, right? Like as a luxury player.
Oh yeah, sure.
Off the bench, yeah.
If he's maybe $150,000 and he's not hitting the cap as hard, yeah, I'm all for it. But the amount of money he's making, no thanks.
Right. It's not realistic. He goes to that.
Right.
He renegotiates his contract down to a 16th of what he's making.
He'll be an FC Cincinnati player.
So we're getting rid of Hyman. All right. Rossetto.
I would keep him, but I haven't seen enough of him to really make a solid decision.
I mean, he's at Transfer Market's got him at 725, so it's probably around 900,000.
I feel like he's one of the players in the midfield that I've seen things out of that I like. It's just
I agree.
He has shades of Nagby and the control and his willingness to accept the ball and come to the ball and try and track it down and try and spray the ball out and create space for other people. Like I feel like his positional awareness is I feel like he's got a high soccer IQ. I like him in that midfield.
Plus, he got a much better haircut. So I'm keeping
my gut would tell me that I would keep him. Yeah, that's my gut.
I don't think he's even a TAM guy, but we'll see. Mo Adams.
Nah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think we keep him.
Castro.
No.
I haven't seen enough of him.
Send him back.
I'm not keeping Castro. I mean, if there's anyone there that has a reason to keep Castro, let me know, but I don't
cut
see
that
it.
loan.
Jake Moreno.
Nope.
I'm not keeping him either.
I'll take Breck Shea over Jake Moreno. And I know I have my biases from 10 years ago, but
I thought he was younger than he was, but it's not.
He's 25, right? 26?
Yeah, 20. Well, Transfer Market says 24. So
I don't know. I feel like he's more serviceable than I think most people give him credit for. It depends on what other options are out there, I guess.
I guess it depends on what
guys. I would agree with you guys. You could probably find a better option. But
Jake, if we keep Moreno, he's bench. He is bench depth.
Sure.
And that's it.
Sure. Yeah.
He is not even as good as Kevin Kratz. They're different players. All right. So you keep him Barker?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Assuming he's not sold or anything, yeah.
All right. Keep him Dam.
Sure.
Keep him Gallagher.
Yep.
And I guess Tyler Wolf. He's 17.
I'm so indifferent about Tyler Wolf that.
Yeah. I mean, is he on loan from the twos?
I don't know.
Again, another guy. We've seen him in one game. Like, come on, what can you really say about Tyler Wolf?
Yeah,
there's so many of these like young academy players too that we have like been fed this expectation of, and if you're talking about obviously George Bello panned out, Andrew Carlton, that's another guy, right? Andrew Carlton's out on loan. Do you bring him back and do you try to see what you can get out of him? I
would. I think
that he's a player this team needs right now.
I would put him in the midfield like day one. I would make him and Joseto. I would put into the midfield, and I would say, you know what, we're gonna
figure it out.
We're going to figure it out with you two in this mix somehow.
Would it be Marcelino, and Carlton? Yeah, midfield three. Yeah. All right. So just to finish this thought,
I don't know. What
I'm not keeping Torres. I may be keeping Adam Yan. I want to see. I'm going to let him go. And
you wouldn't want Kubo Torres as a backup to Joseph Martinez. I know that's
not on the salary he's making.
Okay.
Because I
would take Adam John. I feel like Adam John was the guy that we thought Kenwyn Jones was supposed to be. Like that. Like to your point, Eric, bring him in the 75th minute.
Yeah.
Get physical with the tired back line and try and hoof balls up to him if you need it. And I feel like I would keep him.
12, 13, 14. Okay, so out of 14 players in midfield and attack, we're going to keep 8 of them. So that's 6 players we're shipping out, and I feel that's pretty big turnover again for next year, which is fine. But I just feel like we've got a lot of
the bar is so low right now.
The bar is so low. Do something. And I feel like the positions that we have players in, especially in the midfield, the positions and the way we want them to play and the positions we want them to play are too big for all of them. Maybe I would not say Rossetto, but they're too big for all of them. Rometty,
are you not including Heinemann? Or no, sorry, not including Brooks Lennon in the attack?
No, he was actually listed as a defender.
I would keep Brooks.
Oh, absolutely.
I see him more as an attacker. I like Brooks Lennon.
But he's...
Go ahead, Dan.
He's a more of a wing back, left back, but he's technically a defensive player, even though he's not.
Yeah.
I just think that's a lot. And to Eric's point, like, I feel like we've got 2018 depth as our starters, and then we've got ATL2 players.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. That's what it seems like. And look, I said it when MLS is back, when Frank DeBoer was doing some strange stuff to the lineup. I go, look, are we taking this thing seriously or are we not? If we're not, fine. I can roll with it. I can sit there and play, 17-year-old Tyler Wolff and see what he gives you. I'm all about recalling Carlton and throw him into the Wolves and see what he does. Mm-hmm. But if we're taking it seriously, let's pretend like we're taking it seriously. And it just seemed like Frank DeBoer wasn't taking that tournament seriously. It seems now that Stephen Glass to me is the personality is everything you want in a manager. He's incredibly upfront, incredibly honest. No beating around the bush. He's not going to BS you with his answers. He's going to just tell you straight up what I do or don't know. And, I'm going to answer the question as honestly and as forthright as possible, which is exactly what you, as a fan, which is exactly what you want at your manager. But my goodness, this kind of mix and match stuff that he's doing with the midfield specifically and with the lineup as a whole, it just seems very strange and very, very much in the same vein as ATLUTD too. And I don't want to say this, but it could be that could be what the front office is looking for. They're like, you know what? Run it like you would ATLUTD too. Find us the next diamond in the rough. Find us the next Julian Gressel. Find us the next Miles Robinson. Obviously not at the expense of trying to get wins. You obviously want wins, which it's not that I don't think they're trying to win. They are, but the patterns that you see are very much the same as those that you would see with Atlanta United 2, which is not the greatest optic for the fans, at least, because again, Atlanta United 2 doesn't necessarily care too much about wins. They care about trying to develop the kids into MLS quality starters and stuff like that. And we're in MLS trying to get wins and trying to hopefully get into the playoffs and the pipe dream being that we get to MLS Cup again. I don't know, but consistency in the midfield. That's all I really want. That's all I want. Just give me the guys you want to go with, and let's go with them.
Yeah. You know what, Eric, like you talk about Frank DeBoer and being experimental with the lineups down in Orlando. And I think it kind of lends credence to Ron Pena saying, in his opinion, it's Bocanegra making those switches in the lineup. And it kind of makes sense to me. Maybe I need to walk back my Stephen Glass comments, because if you look back at Bocanegra, that he was down there pointing out tactics with Jeff Lorenowitz down there in the dugout or the bus stop benches. And yeah, maybe that's the direction. Was that you, Dan, that said that? Maybe it's coming from above, that, or one of you two. It's coming from above, and maybe it is. No,
I said that. Look, I have no way of knowing this, but maybe it is something that's coming from the front office. Maybe it's something that they're just like, Steven, do what you do with Atlanta United 2. You got a different set of players. Try to right the ship.
Yeah, plus there's no pressure on Glass. There's pressure from the fans, but it's not like they're going to fire him.
Why not write out the players that you think you have a future with, as opposed to toying with a lineup? Like there was even, I'm trying to remember which game recently where Bello didn't start on the left side. And I was just like, what? Why is this happening?
They keep mentioning stuff like fitness and load management and stuff like that, which I can understand because you have a game every 4 days or whatever it is.
He's 18 years old. I get it. He's injury prone, but at the same time, it's
very obvious. I'm not a part of the front office. I'm not a part of the training staff. That's just what they're telling. That's just what they tell people. Or that's what they told the media. That's what the media is kind of.
It seems kind of bogus. All right. We haven't really recapped the Miami game at all. I want to stick to like positive things that you guys saw on the field on Saturday, if there were any. Dan, like what positives could you pull out? We've talked about Gallagher a little bit. What other positives could you pull out of that game that like we can pump up the true 17s with and try and get some sort of positivity going into whatever the rest of the season looks like for us, because we're not out of playoff distance.
Yes, Joe Johnstone, that is a Glencairn. It's all I drink my whiskey out of now. So yes, John Gallagher, great, loved it. He's awesome. He's someone to build on. You wonder if Jackson Conway would potentially look to want to come up into the to the senior team. I'm not sure. I think we can do that with supplemental spots. But anyway, I think that's more in his decision on what he wants to do. I mean, there were bright spots. I remember watching the game and I was like, this is kind of entertaining to watch in parts of it. You know, it's just the bad parts that seem to overshadow the good, but there were areas of it that I liked watching. I remember when, as soon as Miami scored the first goal, I was like, okay, well, here we go again. And then when we scored the equalizer, it's like, oh yes, finally, they've turned it around. They're so much more energetic, and they were going after it. They were going after the game. But it's like, you know, you make these stupid errors that lead to Breck Shea scoring a goal, because that's all he can do is just score off complete awful errors and garbage. And then it all sorts of falls apart. And then it just kind of reminded me of the 2018 game against Toronto, where we're just trying stuff and nothing's working, and trying not to get turned over. So, I mean, nothing really specific kind of jumps out at me, Tim. It's just kind of, I think that and the Falcons have really sort of made me not so positive on the look of Atlanta United right now.
I don't like sports in 2020 at all. There's not much to like, even with them coming back.
I mean, Liverpool won a title. We can all be on board with that, right? I mean, that's
whoop-de-freaking-do.
But they kind of won it before the pandemic, Tim.
That's true.
I mean,
that's very true.
It
was locked up in December.
Should we have had sports in 2020? Part of me's thinking it probably wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, LeBron's about to get another ring.
I do want to point out that I feel like Bello and Gallagher might be a pairing to kind of like the same thing I talk about the midfield. Gallagher and Bello on that left side, and just go with it.
Yeah,
and see what it produces for you long term. Because it seems like they're kind of clicking. They're kind of on the same page. They don't seem to get in each other's way, and they kind of open things up for each other. Bello is growing into his own. I think the thing that I was very upset with Bello, especially in MLS's back, is his defensive work rate. And it's not that he wasn't putting the effort in. It was more. So the defensive work rate, not the right word, but his positioning when the ball was on the opposite side of the field. How he was helping the back line kind of transition within turnovers in the middle of the field, stuff like that. And as the season has progressed, as we've seen more of George Bello, I've seen less of those errors, to where he is in a better position from the get-go as soon as that turnover is made to be in a better position defensively than he was, say, in MLS's back. Because a lot of those, I think 2 or 3 of the goals that we saw that were like, what the hell's going on? You can sort of put at the feet of George Bello and where he was positionally on the field, at least in my opinion. I've seen less of that. And so that's something I think to want to be positive about, and to that hope that kind of carries over, because this is really the first year we've seen Bello in action game in and game out. Hopefully we continue to see more of him. Hopefully we continue to see him grow with Gallagher or whoever's on the left side. But if he can be a fixture on this starting 11, then you've got him for at least 5 years, just
Absolutely.
playing at that position, and that's what you want out of a young guy like George Bello.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see him on this team in a year.
Really? Already?
Don't say that.
I'd like to at least 2 years, Tim.
I don't know. It doesn't take much time these days for a player, especially his age, his talent, to make his way to Europe. I mean, Elliot Bevan says Bello the next Alphonso Davies, which I think we need to pump the brakes on a little bit, because Alphonso Davies is according to Transfer Market, he's the second most valuable left back in the world. Or no, he's the most valuable. He passed Andy Robertson just because he's like 7 years younger. But again, look at Brendan Aronson about to go to Leipzig. If you look at Alphonso Davies, didn't play that much with Vancouver. You don't need to see a lot out of these players before you see him go. And to be honest, I mean, I think that I don't know. I don't know that Eric, I would love to have him for 5 years, but I don't think that just knowing the way, knowing the way that this league is going and the way that we're supposed to be developing and feeding players to Europe and to other countries is, I just don't see him staying that long. And I honestly have a feeling he's going to be gone in the next year. I may be crazy, but
no, look, I remember hearing the same things about Carlton. Clearly he's still here though.
But like, if you look at the actual on-field product,
sure, much better
in MLS at a younger age. He's scoring goals from left back, and
grant you that.
Yeah, but to the Gallagher and Bello pairing, like, because we saw Gallagher play left back with the twos, right? I mean, those two can interchange on that left side, so one overlaps the other. I mean, they can make those runs and cover for each other too. I love that pairing. I
would just hate to see the promise George Bello has and see him gone after next year or next year, because it would be you missed out on everything you could have been with Atlanta United. You had the stupid year that is 2020, and you got nothing out of him last year. You got nothing out of him this year. Not enough of him to
right.
I get what you're saying. His play is fantastic so far, or at least as of now. But you're not gonna get much out of him in terms of trophies, in terms of things that are recognizable. I guess things that are mementos or big moments for him. Mm-hmm. You're gonna remember that he was a player for Atlanta United, and that's about it.
Well, Bello, I feel like he's got to develop some more elements to his game. I mean, when you can compare him to Alphonso Davies, I mean, Bello can be that slashing guy who's bombing up and down the wing, but I mean, he doesn't have the technical foot ability to, have that, to be able to take guys on and kind of weave in and out of around a block and score a goal. I mean, you go look at that, the best goal Alphonso Davies scored for Vancouver, where he's stepping in and out around a whole back line and slots it in the back of the net. So I think Bello's got a fair amount of development to go yet. I'd be surprised if he's gone next year. I think he needs another 2 years.
I mean, Tyler Adams only had 52 caps for Red Bull, or for New York Red Bulls. Brendan Aronson has 30-something caps. I mean, Alphonso Davies, I hold on, I'll tell you real quick how many times he took the field for Vancouver.
But those players are like, holy shit.
Okay, 65. He did play 65 games for them. Granted, he played for them for like 3
But you
years.
also, I mean, Vancouver and Philadelphia Union don't have reputable academies like Atlanta United does. Because if you're a player like George Bello or, Alphonso Davies or Tyler Adams, you're going to get the better training than you would at Vancouver and stuff. So I don't know. There's a ton of variables to throw into it, but I hope to have him around for another 2.
That's my
I think we get rid of Miles Robinson before we do George Bello, and I think Miles Robinson. I think he's going to end up in Europe at some point, but I think he's still got a year or 2 left here before he truly hones his skill. Because look, Alphonso Davies was he was tuned up, he was ready to go. I was like, he's just waiting for the call from Europe to head over. Bello, I feel like, still has enough work to do where he's going to be here for a little bit. I'm not saying forever, but a little bit.
Yeah,
maybe not 5 years, but I would like him to stay for 5 years.
I could see Miles Robinson going to Germany. I could see him playing over there.
I could see him go to the Championship. I feel like that could really develop him quicker if he can hold on to it.
I mean, he anchored my back line with Reading last year in FIFA, so he did really well. Yeah, he and Matt Miazga.
Well, if that doesn't say enough for you,
right? Exactly.
All American lineup. I went and bought all the American kids.
That's
just
funny.
Dominated. Got back to the top. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Franco Escobar got another yellow card, which sucks.
Isn't he got one every game now?
Something like that, yeah. I think it's a little frustrating, but I liked some of the stuff I saw from Adam John. He was obviously instrumental, right, in the goal.
I mean, Jan was industrious. I mean, you could see he was trying hard. I feel like all the team is trying hard, but he was trying to make a nuisance of himself. And it's just, for order for him to get that perfect cross to score the goal that he can score. I mean, he's just trying to pull players away, but I mean, really, they just know he's not a threat.
Just the whole thing has gone from bad to worse since Frank. Like under Frank DeBoer, you didn't have anyone. We'll start with Stephen Glass, I guess. You didn't have this language coming from the locker room about how people aren't following, doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that by itself to me is like it seemed not that the players would quit. I don't want to say that because that's not true. Because, like you said, you can see the effort. You can see that they're trying. You can see that they hate losing. Mm-hmm. But something's going on where the players are just like, well, we're just waiting for the next manager. We hate this year and this season, like everyone else does, and they're just trying to get through. They're just trying to get through this as quickly and as best as possible. It just doesn't seem like there's a lot of joy in playing for Atlanta United right now.
Yeah,
no, you can see that.
It's not, but it's not just because of the losing. That's not it. Because you can still have a promising season and still have the problems that you had in the locker room. Look at last year, for example. But there's not a lot of joy in playing for Atlanta United right now for these players, and I think that more than anything, I want to hear the language changed in the locker room, in the press conferences, and all that stuff, because that stuff really bothers the fans. Hearing that stuff from the club that in a short history. This is #history, by the way.
Yeah,
history we're missing. This is it.
Yeah.
But to hear that kind of language, you just I know I'm ready as a fan, as someone that covers a team. I'm ready for that language to be done. I'm ready for the team to move forward. And it seems like until we get that next coach, which I hope happens sooner rather than later, it's just going to be this for a while. At least for the rest of the season.
So do you think, let's say we get a coach in the next 2 weeks. How many games have we got left now? We got 6.
Oh,
at least phase 2.
I think if you can get them in early, I don't know that really helps this year.
I just worry, like, if we got a coach in and we play 5 or 6 games and we lose the same way.
Out! Get him out!
When, if Gabriel Heinze comes in and does all this losing, it's not going to be a fair comparison. And maybe the front office, I mean, this is wild speculation, but maybe the front office are like, this year is in the tank. So let's just play it out with an interim manager, and then we'll hire this guy, or just say we won't start your contract until the new season, so you can have a completely clean slate with the players, with the fans, which is a huge component because the managers have to deal with that, and with the league. So I think it could be in the better interests in the long-term future of bringing in a manager to just wait until the year's done to start him on the job.
Yeah. My counter to that would be I would want him in as soon as possible so that he can start working with the players he has now, help build the chemistry that you want between your players and your coaches, and see what he does to kind of mix it up a little bit. I would rather get him in as early as possible, treat the rest of the season that he's here for as kind of like a very, very early preseason, and start to kind of work at what he wants to do with his team, at least what he has available now, because that could change from now to next year. But to get that ball rolling, to get that started, because I don't want to. Personally, I don't want to wait until the next preseason for him to finally get his hands on this team, for him to finally be able to see what this team looks like when it comes to his tactics in the play on the field. I'd rather him get started on that now so that we don't have 4 or 5 games where we're like, is it working yet?
Right. I mean, yeah, I would agree, but it's the environment you're coming into.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's going to be and maybe that's a conversation that's already been had.
I'm surprised we haven't heard any rumors yet.
Yeah.
Well, how desirable is his coaching position? Right now, I mean, that's
if you're trying to resurrect your career, it's a pretty desirable one.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Frank DeBoer just failed up probably into another one's management appointment. So, I mean,
remember Tata was sort of in the same boat.
Yeah,
not nearly as bad as Frank DeBoer, but he was sort of in the same boat.
To Brian's point, he says, "What coach is going to come in and fix this?" He said, "None." He said,
not this year. Not this year.
Yeah. I mean, to his point, nothing matters until Joseph is back. That's true because we've put our eggs in his basket. So, as he goes,
Elliot Beavan. Stop. Just stop with that.
Alan Pardue.
Just stop. I know it's not going to happen, but it does make me like a little bit of vomit comes into my mouth every time I see that name suggested for this job.
What I do want to happen is Atlanta United make the playoffs. I know they're not far. I think they're with 3 points off the line.
Yeah.
Oh man,
they're not very far off. It's a matter of winning 1 or 2 games, and they're right back into that conversation of being a playoff team. Not that they're not now, but they're obviously not in the playoffs at the moment. But I would like them just to that's the only goal I would have as an Atlanta United player is make the playoffs. Anything can happen after that. But keeping that streak alive would mean that you worked for it. And it'd just be like a little thing we could hold over Orlando's head.
So, Eric, do you think we make the playoffs?
I don't know.
Without knowing how many games
we've got. I don't think so. I don't see how this turns around. I expected it to be worse than it was against Miami. I don't see without a strong midfield. I don't see how this team makes it. I don't know how they go on winning games, just getting results, get a draw, get a fight at the end, at the death to get a win or something. I don't know. I'm like I want to be optimistic. It's not like it's all pessimism from me, but it's hard when you watch the musical chairs of midfielders that Stephen Glass is, and then the language you hear out of the locker room and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I mean, if this is the stuff that we're witnessing, there's trends. This has happened in sports before, and the trend is never a good one. It's never a positive thing to hear, that players aren't doing their jobs, and that the thought that Stephen Glass is treating his team treating the first team like Atlanta United too. Like it's a mess. It is what it is. It's the soccer version of 2020. So,
Tim, you think we make the playoffs?
Yeah, I think so.
Really?
I feel like it'd take a win or two, right?
See, I mean, to Eric's point,
it's top 10 this year, right?
Top 10, so we are 1 point behind FC Cincinnati.
And it's FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, but Inter Miami are above us on goal difference, so we have Inter Miami between us and a playoff berth. And
just keep in mind, we haven't played any of the good Eastern Conference teams. We played Orlando, who's in third right now, and that's really it. We haven't played Toronto, we haven't played NYCFC, we haven't played Philly, we played Columbus, but
right.
Those are the teams we're going to see in the playoffs. Those are the likely teams, as it stands now, the likely teams we would see, in the first round.
So Dallas, we could potentially win that, but Dallas are kind of up on the up and up right now. I mean, I don't want to play them. And then nothing's ever has been good going to Chicago.
Look, I went into Miami thinking it was going to be bad. I'm going into Dallas knowing it's going to be bad. Yeah. Going to Dallas just expecting it to be a butt whooping.
I do not think we are going to make the playoffs. I just don't see how we can turn it around. I think this season is done. And I'm just looking forward to 2021 and the internet rumors of managers and players. That's what I'm looking forward to. So I guess I'm not a true 17.
Can I address a question that I just saw in the chat?
Yeah.
Kevin Escobar, has anyone asked Eric who his new target is now that Tito and Pity are both gone?
Can I take a guess?
Sure, I don't have one, but go ahead.
I think it's either going to be. Well, I feel like Torres is too easy.
I don't expect much out of him.
Right. I think it's probably either going to be
whatever you get out of Torres is a plus. But I don't go into games thinking you got to get the best out of. And the only reason I was so hard on Tito, like I hate having to remind people of this. It was the same reason we're harsh on Hyndman. If Tito was getting paid $150,000, I wouldn't have said anything about Tito because he's not getting paid the big bucks. But Tito was a DP and taking up that slot that he eventually lost and then eventually got benched by Tata.
Yep, this is all just pointing to Eric's future hate of Jurgen Damm.
He wasn't as productive as we thought he was going to be, and he was taking up a DP spot.
Yep. So Jurgen Damm, value pretty high. I'm sure he's got a good TAM contract. He's only scored 1 assist, only got 1 assist, no goals yet.
I also can't really hate on anybody this year. There's really no one I hate. I don't hate any players.
Jurgen Damm's gonna be around next year.
There's no one really that I'm that down on that I'm like, bro, pick it up.
Jurgen
Damm.
Stephen Glass. Yeah. I want Stephen Glass to pick it up.
One last thing, I guess, to point in the trap. Gustavo Rodriguez from Buenos Aires is saying, soccer down here, home before dark, Siempre United and Mouse of the South might unite to make a great poll and find out who Atlanta United fans want as a coach, because I don't see a clear trend. I think that's true. I mean, from my standpoint, I've seen different camps. I think the Gabriel Heinze camp might be the biggest camp of realistic candidates that I've seen on Twitter. Not the Pochettino people, but yeah, I don't know who else besides Gabriel Heinze, and even Gallardo. I don't know if he's a realistic expectation at manager.
Well, if Pio gets fired, he will be a good candidate.
Yes, that's why I've been asking for the front office to announce Piojo for a few weeks now. Like it's time. Like it's time to bring that man in. To where he's not. Did you? Who? I think it was Rob Ostry retweeted that guy with no neck in the Metro PCS store that was fighting with the clerk. Did you see that? He looked. He's like, Piojo's having a bad week. It looked exactly. You guys got to find that. It looks exactly like it.
Well, I'm praying for bad Club America results then.
Yeah. I think it needs to happen. Eric, thank you for joining us tonight, being so gracious on short notice to hop into that third seat. Can you tell the people where they can find you, where they can find your works, where they can get aggravated and frustrated and fired up about what you're spouting over there?
Happy to grace you guys with my mediocre presence. You can find the podcast at MOTS Podcast on Twitter. You can find me at Eric G. Quintana on Twitter. I think we're recording one on Thursday after the SC Dallas match, which it's going to be an awesome one. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Dan, where can they find you at on the social medias?
You can find me at DNJMS.
Yeah, you can find me mostly on the Home Before Dark Twitter. That's home B, the number 4 dark. Thank you guys for tuning in, making us a part of your Monday night ritual or your Tuesday afternoon. I don't know if anybody has commutes anymore. I'm sure it's very, very few now. But
Atlanta traffic is back to sucking. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, good. That means our numbers should go up then. Make sure to give us a subscribe, a like, rating, review on iTunes. We always appreciate it. It helps spread the word. Yeah, I'm not good at closing this out. It's weird without Kevin, but I just want to say, were you going to say something, Dan?
Brittany's score predictions.
Oh, score predictions. Shit. I'm so caught up in the fact that we're not good that I'm not worried about score predictions.
Yeah. Okay. Have you guys heard my Lucid FC reads?
Oh, they're terrible.
They're majestic.
FC Dallas. I'll go for a 2-1 Dallas win.
You're being too kind.
Yeah, 2-0.
I venture to say 3-0, 4-0, something along those lines.
Oof, yikes.
Like it's gonna be bad. I see Dallas is good.
3-1 Dallas. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck to think. What about Chicago?
Oh God. I think it'll be a 1-0 loss.
I don't know. What can you expect from this team at this point? Let's say 1-1.
All right, 1-0. I say we get it. I see we bring back. Yeah, we get a win against Chicago. I'd say we get 3 points out of that match because I'm so tired. Honestly, I'm not that tired of watching us lose. I mean, I am, but I understand like the climate. Like, I can't expect this team.
Everyone's numb to the process now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still like seeing Atlanta United play on TV. Like, I like seeing us in our jerseys playing on the field. I'm gonna watch the games, even though we suck. But it's like a familiarity thing. It's like Stockholm syndrome. I mean, you know who the players are.
Yeah, and that's why
you're wearing the jersey.
Yeah, that's why you, sir, are a true 17.
Right.
Elliot Beaven says 4-0. Domer says 2-0. Neither of them specified a team.
But it's obvious who it is.
And then Brittany S has a draw 2-2. I'm guessing she means for the she's talking about the Dallas game. Domer 1-1 Chicago. Elliot Beaven 3-3. Again, another draw. Gustavo Rodriguez saying a difficult draw. Coach Steve saying 1-1 against Chicago. Got a lot of them in here. 1-1 against Chicago for Brittany S too. Brian says the Gallagher goal was nice. You got to enjoy the little things. A half volley into the top of the net from that far away. Yeah, you got to enjoy that. I think that
was the same good pass from Bello through the legs of, I don't even know who the defender was, but
the nutmeg.
Yeah, the whole thing was impressive.
I hope it was against Ben Sweat. Don't like that guy.
No, I don't like him either.
Yeah. Who's got a less likable face, Ben Sweat or Daniel Lovitz?
Mm-hmm.
I know. On that.
I feel like Daniel Royer's up there.
Yeah.
Oh no, Alex Mule, can't stand him. Looks like
that goatee. He looks like he should be working at GameStop.
Yeah, you guys are mean. You just go straight for the personal. My gosh.
Well,
at least when I'm critical of players, it's about the play on the field, not their personal, image.
Well, that's something they can control, Eric, just like the play on the field.
All right. Well, thank you guys as always for tuning in and making us a part of your week. We love you guys. Make sure that you guys join us next week. And as always, be home before dark.
Opportunities do not come with their values stamped on them.
All right.